Do you think we should get into reviewing Ahsoka episode 6?
Let's do it.
All right, guys. This episode is entitled Far, Far Away. We start with Ahsoka and Hu Yang traveling inside the Purgle's mouth from the previous episode. Mm-hmm. And Ahsoka recalls Hu Yang telling her about when she was a youngling. Ahsoka reveals to Hu Yang that Sabine went with the enemy willingly and that she didn't tell Hera. Ahsoka says Sabine was fated to make her choice because she didn't have time to prepare her to make the right one. Hu Yang says the Force gives you insights, but not all the answers, and that maybe Sabine's choice was the only choice. By the way, I don't know what the length of this episode was, but when I was taking my notes, it took me a lot longer than the other episodes. I don't know if there was just more dialogue or if it was a longer episode.
It probably was more dialogue, I can imagine, because they were introducing new characters and they had to explain them a little bit and tell their story and stuff.
You know, my Disney Plus app, when I pause the show, it doesn't give me the time code.
Oh, it doesn't?
So, it doesn't seem to on my TV anyway.
I haven't noticed that. I'll check it out.
So Ahsoka asks Hu Yang to tell her a story. And he starts with a long, long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. Just a little apropos for Star Wars.
Yep.
Sabine wakes up handcuffed in her prison cell. Baylan walks by.
So, okay, I gotta interrupt.
Sure.
Is it, this is such a trope in movies and shows, where they don't kill the person that they have prisoner. There's no reason to keep them alive, right? Is there a reason to keep her alive?
Well, Baylan keeps hinting that she might be useful to them. So I think he is scheming something to where he thinks she's going to be useful.
Yeah.
But I'm not exactly sure what that is.
I guess so. Yeah. But that does happen a lot in movies where they keep somebody like a hero alive just to take them along with them and stuff like that.
I mean, to be fair, they do kind of use her, later on in this episode in an attempt to, follow and track down Ezra. So,
yeah, but I mean, to me, it's how is she going to find him compared to anybody else?
Yeah, it seems like they probably could have found him on their own if they really tried. But yeah, even in this episode, Baylan will say a couple different times that, maybe we should keep her around. She might be of use to us. So I think they might have a reason that we find out eventually to be like, oh, that's why he didn't kill her.
All right.
One of those moments. But we'll see. Mm-hmm. But yeah, she wakes up handcuffed in her prison cell. Baylan walks by. She tells Baylan she was hoping for a room with a view because there's no window or anything. Sabine tells Baylan that they had a deal that she would see Ezra again. So she's yelling at him, and he just walks away. So Morgan asks Baylan if he intends on keeping his promise to Sabine, and yeah, he says her desire to find Ezra blinds her, but he thinks she can still be of use to them. And he almost seemed mad at her that she was still so hung up on Ezra. Mm. So I'm really not sure. I mean, I guess that's the biggest kind of hanging mystery in this show is what's his role in all this? Because he's definitely scheming something.
Oh, I'm very interested to see what he's doing. We'll get to it later in the episode, but yeah, there's some big moving parts there with Baylan.
Yeah, seems to be anyway. So the villains arrive at their destination, a ringed, kind of Saturn-looking planet called Peridia. It is the ancient homeworld of Morgan's ancestors, the Dathomiri. Morgan says her people were the first to ride the Purgle. So I found that a little bit interesting that these witches were the first ones to kind of figure out how to ride the Purgle. And
yeah, but it leads to more questions. How come they're not riding them now to get out of there? Or how come they didn't use Dawn to ride the Purgles to get out of there?
That's kind of true, because if the witches know how to do that, I mean, the only thing that kind of makes sense is you could say, well, the bad guys, they did that whole thing where they found the exact coordinates, and they even had that line the last episode or whatever where Balin's like, well, if you're off just a little bit, we're going to be in who knows where. But like, if the witches were using the Purgle before, did they just use them once and they're like, well, we got to this planet, we better not use them again because we might not get back to where we came. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, there are questions there of like, if they used them, like how often did they use them and how did they do it with any accuracy if it took them all this like robot and droid figuring,
Right.
So yeah, I don't know if they'll ever explain that. Probably not. Balin said the whales went there to die and that Peridia was a graveyard. And then it cuts to outside their spaceship and we actually see like the skeletons of a bunch of dead Purgle.
Yeah.
My only thing is though, like, if an animal like that were to die in space, wouldn't they just freeze and be kind of preserved?
Yeah, I don't know.
Like, would they ever really get down to just their bones if they're frozen in space?
Right. Oh, that's a good question.
Maybe whatever their makeup is lets them rot in space. I don't know. So they detect a beacon on the planet's surface. Some guards grab Sabine, and they all travel down to the planet. The planet is covered with giant statues. I wasn't sure, like, what those were statues of.
I don't know either.
I saw, because there are, like, I know specifically in Star Wars Rogue One, they go to, like, a planet that's, like, used to be home of, like, a Jedi temple. And so, like, there was a giant, like, broken statue of, like, a Jedi or something. But this planet certainly doesn't seem
Jedi friendly.
Actually, this planet is so far away, it would almost make sense that these statues would have had to have been made by the Dathomiri people.
Right.
So maybe it's...
Well, I mean, there is also that Skull was hearing stories about the Jedi, I think, visiting this place too, though, right? Like, I imagine the Jedi had to have been on that planet at some point to know about it and tell those stories about it.
I'm trying to remember. It seems like there is a bit of dialogue in one of the past episodes too about Hu Yang, about Jedi also, like they had some ancient texts about Jedi using the Purgle to travel as well. So you might be right. I don't remember. Yeah. So part of me thinks that kind of stuff will just never be answered, and it'll just be like, make up your own mind about it. So they encounter 3 witches in the middle of another circular Stonehenge type of thing on this planet. Morgan says the witches' visions guided her across the stars. And they say Thrawn promised that Morgan would come. Morgan asks where Thrawn is, and the witches say she must wait and that he is coming. A witch says it reeks of Jedi as they look at Sabine. The witches send like these 3 little orb things around Sabine, which end up binding her in this like red like laser rope, I guess you would call it, magical rope. And they say she will wait in solitude. The orbs then take Sabine to a stone prison cell. While they wait for Thrawn to show up, Shin and Balin have this large like dialogue scene. So Shin asks Balin what he's thinking. He says stories of this galaxy are considered folk tales, some ancient past long forgotten. Shin says for good reason, and that sometimes stories are just stories. Balin says he once saw everything he knew burn. He says he couldn't make sense of it at the time, but as you get older and look at history, you realize it's all inevitable. The fall of the Jedi, the rise of the Empire, it repeats again and again and again. Shin asks if their time now, asks if it's their time now, and if their alliance with Thrawn will finally bring them into power. Balin says that kind of power is fleeting, and what he seeks is the beginning. so that he may finally bring this cycle to an end. Shin asks if the beginning is here, and Baylan says yes, if the old stories are true. So
I could listen to Baylan talk about that stuff like the whole episode. That's interesting to me.
it is, but like, then I'm like, he seems to have an ulterior. That makes me seem like he's just trying to find a way to destroy everything almost.
Yeah.
Like he almost. It sounds like, this whole time he's been playing on Morgan's team and seemingly like, yay, we're gonna get Thrawn back and stuff. But I almost feel like he has an ulterior motive against both sides,
Right.
both Thrawn and the Jedi.
I think he's working on something bigger than that, like whatever this thing is he's looking for ends everything, like the war, the whole conflict between both sides. Like
His dialogue has been interesting during this show because he's both said things that seem kind of selfish and evil, but also things that seem like he's
trying to fix what went wrong.
yes, and altruistic in some certain way.
Yeah.
And also that he kind of has some sort of respect for Ahsoka and the
As a
Jedi.
Jedi,
Yeah. So, yeah, he's definitely like the most interesting puzzle piece of this show.
Mm-hmm.
And also, like, he references, if the old stories are true. Well, like, his history, like, for the most part, is like, knowing the history of the Jedi. So, like, I kind of wonder what he's referencing there as well, or if they'll even go into that. So Sabine tries to escape her cell using the Force, and like some dirt moves, but it ends up not being caused by the Force, but being caused by a Star Destroyer flying overhead. The Star Destroyer lands. It is filled with stormtroopers chanting Thrawn's name. There is a stormtrooper commander with a gold mask named Enoch. Thrawn makes his way through the crowd and greets Morgan. I gotta say, like, I didn't like, because that last episode of Rebels, like, whether it's taken away by the Purrgil, I mean, I didn't realize that like so many stormtroopers were taken away, but I guess it makes sense because they took away like the whole
ship.
ship and everything.
I mean, they lost a bunch, so that's just the ones left over. It's still like a pretty big size, army.
I do kind of wonder though, like, what happened when they first arrived there? Because like, I still don't really know why Ezra was so intent on like, oh, I'm going to see this through and go wherever Thrawn goes. Like, he should have been like, oh, the Purrgil's going to take him away. I'm just going to bounce. Because like, he evidently didn't kill Thrawn.
Right.
Like, what happened when they got there? Like,
How did he get away?
I feel like he was just like, oh, this was stupid. I'm really outnumbered. I'll run away or something.
Right, yeah.
So like, I'm kind of hoping they explain that, but I don't know that they will.
I mean, this whole thing is caused by him going with Thrawn, because if he hadn't, then she wouldn't have made the decision to like go after him and help them in that way.
That's true. It really was a bad idea.
Yeah.
And I still kind of wonder if they're going to explain like how the map was made, like who made that map, how was it placed for them to find.
Yeah. I think the map, now that, we've seen this much and there's all this lore, I think the map was already made because it wasn't to find Thrawn, it was to find that planet, and I think Morgan Elsbeth knew that the Purrgil travel from here to there, not exactly that that's 100% where they went, but I think her thinking was that they went back to where they came from, where they go to die.
Okay. That would actually make more sense.
Yeah.
So maybe like the Jedi made that map like forever ago and put it in one of their temples, and then she just happened to know because of like her ancestors or whatever that's the most likely spot they would go.
Right.
And so they needed that.
And she was already getting calls from that planet, like from her Dathomiri sisters or whatever, the mothers of those ladies.
Oh, okay.
So she was already getting like signals that something Thrawn was out there,
So it could just be explained that, they basically, the witches told her to find the map or whatever. Okay. That does make more sense. So Thrawn says what was just a dream has become a frightening reality for those that may oppose them. Thrawn says Enoch will begin the cargo transport per his agreement with the Great Mothers. That's what he calls the three witches, is the Great Mothers. Morgan says she's seen the catacombs and that it will take at least 3 rotations, which Thrawn says is an acceptable time frame. Now, that whole piece of dialogue there, they never really explain what they're doing, like what's the deal with this catacombs and
what the cargo
is. Yeah.
Yeah, there's some theories I've seen on some channels. Some people think that the cargo is like dead Dathomiri, like people who I guess didn't have the resources to live or something. I'm not sure what the case was, but they think it might be like some sort of necromancy, like they're trying to bring them back to life wherever they go.
Oh, okay.
But who knows?
The Great Mothers tell Thrawn about Sabine. They say she is a loose thread they didn't predict. So it does seem like they have some sort of like, mythical, like seer type powers where they can, kind of see the future.
Mm-hmm.
Oracle type powers. Balin says...
just to mention, you mentioned Oracle type powers. These 3 ladies are named after the... I saw this on those other channels. I think New Rockstars mentioned this. They're named after the Greek fates, I think.
Oh, right. The Sisters of Fate.
Yeah. So one tells the story, and one cuts the lifeline at the end. So they're all those different roles in those.
Okay.
Yeah.
Using a little Greek mythology in there.
Mm-hmm.
Balin says he brought Sabine once again because he thought she could be of use to them. Thrawn recognizes Balin as a former Jedi. Balin says he left the Order long ago, and Thrawn says he wouldn't be the first. Thrawn recognizes Sabine's name and says she will be of use to them. Sabine is taken to Thrawn, and she asks him where Ezra is. Thrawn says her desire to see Ezra will reshape the galaxy. Thrawn says he will honor Balin's promise and give Sabine provisions, a mount, and their latest intel on Ezra's whereabouts. Which, to me, if they had any intel
yeah.
Why weren't they already going after him? Thrawn says she should know that when his starship departs, she will be stranded forever and that Ezra may already be dead. Thrawn says Sabine has gambled the fate of the galaxy on her belief that Ezra is still alive.
Thrawn was really twisting that knife.
Yeah, I know.
You fucked up.
She says he wouldn't understand. As Sabine gets on her mount, Enoch tells her that nomads wander the wasteland and prey upon each other for survival. They give her weapons, her lightsaber and a blaster. As she rides away, Thrawn tells Balin to follow her at his own pace. Thrawn says if Sabine finds Ezra, then Balin and Shin are to destroy them both. Sabine attempts to use it never says what it is. I think it's some sort of radar device.
Mm-hmm.
So she attempts to use that to find Ezra. But a nomad shoots it out of her hand. So she ends up getting in a fight with these nomads, first with her lightsaber and eventually her blaster. And she ends up defeating all of them. Enoch tells Thrawn that Balin has begun his pursuit. He tells him to prepare 2 support squads. Morgan suggests that he should send more, but he says their numbers have dwindled since they got there, so 2 will be enough. So, I do kind of wonder, if that's just from being low on supplies or, what's been taking out their men.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine, they have to go hunt for food or something like that, and they run into some trouble, as small groups.
Probably those nomads.
Yeah.
Thrawn says their primary goal is to escape their galaxy and the fate of Sabine and Ezra. It doesn't really matter, as well as the fate of Balin and Shin. That's another thing is if Thrawn is we're going to leave in 3 days or whatever, Why is he even putting this effort in going after Sabine and Ezra? Because if he leaves,
Yeah, they're done.
they're cut off.
Yeah.
Unless he knows, or unless he thinks, well, maybe they'll figure out how to use the whales. I don't know. Or maybe he's just like, well, Shin and Balin are so expendable that they can go.
I think he wants to get rid of them anyway. He doesn't trust them, it seems.
So during Sabine's fight, her mount ran away. So now we get a scene where Sabine yells at her mount for abandoning her and calls it a coward. And then she like points and tells it to go away. But it ends up just like following her anyway. Sabine notices her mount smells something and gives it a second chance and gets back on. Because she's like, oh, maybe it smells Ezra or whatever. Her mount stops for a drink and then smells a rock, which turns out to be an alien creature. I was watching with subtitles on, and the subtitles called this thing Little Noti. And I think like this like band of aliens are called the Noti.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that's what it's referenced as on a channel I watch.
The creature recognizes the rebel symbol on Sabine's shoulder. And then it like shows her this like medallion it has that I think
has the same symbol.
Has the same symbol, yeah.
I think Ezra was like giving out stuff to those people or something.
He must have been, or like, or making those or something, yeah. But yeah,
so really propaganda for everybody on this planet.
Yeah. So she sees that and she asks if he knows Ezra, and that causes the rock to like wake up a bunch of his other rock buddies. So yeah, they seem to know Ezra, so Sabine follows them. Now we get a scene where Balin finds the nomads that Sabine killed. Shin asks if Balin knew Ezra Bridger. He says no, but he knows Ezra was trained to be a Jedi in the wild after the temple fell. Shin says, train like me, and Balin says no, and that he trained Shin to be something more than a Jedi. Shin asks Balin if he misses the Jedi Order, and he says he misses the idea of it. He says there was no future there. Shin asks if he sees a future in the wasteland. He says he sees what was once the great witch kingdom of the Dathmiri. Shin says the Great Mothers want to leave this place, and maybe they should too. Balin says perhaps they flee a power greater than their own. Balin says something calls to him here. So that's kind of interesting, is like, I don't know, like, does he think he's going to find something here, or that...
I hope so. I'm hoping something happens in this next episode.
Or I'm wondering if he thinks that Ezra is key to his plan succeeding. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that.
So Shin sees some
Maybe he could like shake Ezra down for some information about what he's seen on the planet to find what he's looking for.
That could be too. Yeah, I don't know what his intentions are. So Shin sees some of the nomad bandits and kind of gets ready to fight them, but Balin says there's no need for bloodshed and that the enemy of their enemy is their friend. My only thing there is like... those nomads you would just think would be like, oh, there's some outsiders, let's kill them.
Yeah.
You know, you would think they'd almost come after him just like they did Sabine. But so Sabine goes to the Rock People's village, and Ezra ends up appearing behind her and says he knew he could count on her, but it sure took long enough. They hug. Ezra asks how she found him, but she says she doesn't want to talk about that right now. He tells the Rock People to pack up, and he says that he never stays too long in one place. He thanks Sabine and says he can't wait to get home. So now we get a scene where the Great Mothers tell Thrawn that another Jedi is on the way and that they ride the Travelers, a.k.a. the Purgle. Thrawn figures that it might be Ahsoka. But Morgan says Balin assured her that Ahsoka was dead. Thrawn says Balin was once a Jedi, so they must regard him as flawed. Thrawn says he will consider Ahsoka to be alive until he knows otherwise and prepare accordingly. He wants to know everything about her. He says if a Purgle shows up to destroy it with prejudice. He tells the Great Mothers that he will once again require their dark magic. And that is the end of the episode. I don't know. It seems weird that, like, I don't know if I like that he's just automatically like, oh, I bet it's Ahsoka.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. A part of you wants them to have some sort of element of surprise, I guess.
Yeah. Like, it just seems too... Like, now we know what's going to happen, you know? Like, it'd be more interesting if you didn't know that he knew, you know? Or something like that, you know? Like, where it's a bit of a surprise to everybody.
I think they do always want to show off that, you know, he's smart and strategically minded, that, you know, he put this together, or he just has that sort of, like, insight.
Yeah.
That, you know, maybe Balin didn't get the job done.
Yeah, I don't know much about that character yet, but, I mean, I know he's the bad guy, but he doesn't seem that bad to me right now. Nothing menacing about him right now. You know, like, if it's like a big scary person, then that automatically gives you that visceral kind of like, oh my gosh, this guy's trouble. But
yeah, because with him, he's less of like a physical threat and more of like a mental threat. They want to put that together, that he's just like this strategic, you know, has this brilliant strategic mind.
But even the lines that he's said so far, they're not like super clever or anything, you know. It's just like observations and this and that. It's just like, I don't know. I'm not too intrigued by him yet.
Yeah, I would say in this particular episode, like, none of his dialogue was like, oh,
yeah,
wow, this guy's something, you know.
Right.
But I'm sure they'll flesh him out a little more as the show goes along. I do kind of wonder, though, with just 2 episodes left, you know, how this season's going to end. Because I got to imagine, like, I don't know if it's going to be like a steep cliffhanger, but I think it's going to definitely end with like, oh, the story's not over.
Oh, for sure.
You know?
Yeah. But that's a surprise to me that there is 2 episodes left. I didn't know that. So they have to reveal not only how... So I'm guessing that they're not going to get off this planet by the end of the season. I don't know.
Or maybe that's like how it ends, is them leaving.
Yeah, something like that. Also, I really hope they do show what Balin Skull's going after. I hope that's not like, you know, he ends up in a temple and is about to do something. I want to see this being or whatever it is, this power that he's after. I hope I see it this episode.
I mean, I would think they would have to give, before the end of the season, some answers as to what he's been planning.
Yeah. But it sucks that they're going to have to replace him now.
Yeah, again, unless, like, this takes a turn and his character ends up dying.
Yeah.
But
it seems like it's bigger than that.
They're setting him up so much, I would almost think they have plans for
the future.
Yeah. But yeah, that does suck. I mean, Ray Stevenson's a great actor. He's doing a good job in his part.
My favorite characters in this show so far are him and Ahsoka, you know? Like, I could hear him talk about the Jedi stories and all this stuff. Like, it's intriguing to me. And Ahsoka's just a badass, you know?
I mean, I like Rosario Dawson a lot. Mm-hmm. I wish Ahsoka had, like... Because in the cartoons, like, she was, of course... like a kid then or whatever, or much younger or whatever. So, I mean, she had a lot of personality in those. And, like, I do get that, like, she's older, she's been through stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I almost feel like they took away too much of her personality and she's just a little too stoic. I mean, she's still, you know, it comes off as a badass in, like, the lightsaber scenes and stuff like that, I guess. But I don't know.
But you know what? Like, since the first episode, she was way more stoic in that episode. But as they go by, you can see kind of like her personality come out a little bit, like with her relationship with Ren. So I think we'll see more and more of that, like, other side of her over time.
Oh yeah, her with Sabine Wren. Yeah. I just. I would like her to show a little more personality. The only thing is, like, the whole thing with the Jedi is they're always taught to kind of keep their emotions in check.
Okay.
So I guess it kind of makes sense. But at the same time, that kind of makes her a more boring Jedi, in my opinion. The fact that they're always, to a degree, like, taught to, like, suppress their emotions, it seems like.
Except for the Sith. The Sith are, like, just rage-filled, right? Isn't that what the thing is? Like,
well, yeah, the whole dark side thing. Yeah, so I guess... Well, that's the whole thing is Yoda's always like, oh, don't be too whatever. It's going to lead to the dark side. So you got to keep your emotions in check. So, yeah, I guess, the Sith are just like Jedi who...
get to express themselves.
Yeah. In a way, it probably is better.
Yeah. I'd pick that side, too.
But then, like, it always, like, corrupts them and makes them evil, I guess.
Right, yeah.
It's the price you pay.
Mm.
But yeah, this series consistently to me, like, I hate to be just in the same, like, 7 to 10 out of 10 range, but I think that's where I am. I think this is good. It's maybe not like, the best show I've ever seen, but each episode I'm like, this is solid. I want to watch the next one, and
Yeah, I mean, out of the Star Wars, content that I've seen so far, even compared to Mandalorian, I like this. This is my top choice so far. Yeah.
I think, I don't know, Mandalorian is probably overall like a funner show.
Mm-hmm.
And I also really liked Andor, but Andor's like the grimmest show, like super serious.
Mm-hmm.
But I do like that, they have these mix of tones in these. This show is like somewhere in between where like it does have like moments of levity.
Yeah.
But it's more of like about the adventure, I think.
Yeah. I can see that.
But yeah, definitely some cool like lore in this episode.
A lot of interesting, I like hearing about like ancient times and like what people were doing like before they even counted time. Like the Dathmiri are interesting to me in that sense. I wonder how far back their whole civilization goes and what it's been doing this whole time. I know they won't get into that in the show, but if there's like even comics or something like that, I'd like to see some sort of breakdown on that. That'd be interesting to me.
Yeah, I remember like sometimes like the actual like witchcraft stuff doesn't really always appeal to me, but like I guess I just have to accept, like, it is part of, I mean, I guess the Force by itself is kind of magic, so it's for Star Wars, you just kind of got to go with it, I guess.
I mean, aren't they all drawing from the Force?
I think so, in some way or another, yeah.
Yeah, I thought so, okay.
I mean, I don't know if they've ever really explored that, but yeah, if like, these witches are using magic, you got to imagine they're tapping into the Force in some way.
Right, yeah. And especially if the Jedi know about this planet and it's somewhat important to them at some point, like it must have had something to do with the Force too, I imagine.
Yeah, I would actually be interested in like the history of this planet. Like it was like, did both the Jedi and the Dathomir like at times live on this planet?
Right.
What exactly the history is, because I don't know.
Yeah, this planet is intriguing in that sense. I want to know what's so special about it too.
Really, even that Cetos planet, I was like, does this planet have some sort of significance? Because
she fell and ended up in that dimension or that plane. Yeah, that was interesting too.
And we know from Rebels that plane like can be reached from other areas. But in Rebels, it was from a Jedi temple. So, like, it makes you wonder, like, was there a Jedi temple on Cetos at one time or something that would allow? Or is that just a weird thing they're going to be like, how do we write ourselves out of this? The plane, the mysterious plane.
Right.
So, I don't know. They could maybe misuse that. But yeah, show is still intriguing me. I'm looking forward to more.
Yeah, me too.
AJ, anything else you want to add before we wrap this up?
I'm good to go.
All right, guys. Well, thank you very, very much for following along. If you will, please subscribe to our YouTube channel and to the podcast in audio form on your podcast catcher of choice. Leave us thumbs up, 5-star reviews, all that good stuff. If you like, you can follow me on Twitter /X at Zach Jones Live. That's ZachJonesLive. And that is going to do it for all of our shenanigans and poppycock this week. Please, please, please tune in again next week. Bye, guys.
Take care.